The ruins of a deserted city. A poignant reminder that here was once a busy community. Perhaps it met a violent end. Or maybe it died simply of old age. For the life of a community must be nourished by new blood and fresh ideas. From the steppes of Central Asia have emerged countless waves of migrants. Some of the earliest were Aryan tribes, whose name continues in present-day Iran. At first glance, it's an unlikely place for civilized life to take root. The plateau is ringed by high mountains, and bitterly cold winters are followed by the arid heat of summer. Beside the mountain fringes, oases grew up along the early trade routes. Their sanctuary beckoned the traveler from across the vast desert horizons. One of the earliest historic landmarks is a ziggurat, a temple platform from the time of Babylon. Nearly 1,000 years later, the same shape inspired a simple, dignified tomb for Cyrus the Great, founder of the Persian Empire. This was the world's first true empire, receiving tribute from many nations, and its emperor could boast, "I am Darius, King of kings, king of countries, king of the earth." This is the palace which I erected. From afar its ornamentation was brought. The stone cutters who wrought the stone, those were Ionians and Sardians. The men who wrought the baked brick, those were Babylonians. The goldsmiths who wrought the gold, those were Medes and Egyptians. Says Darius the king, here a splendid task was ordered. Very splendidly did it turn out. Parts of this grand design were still unfinished when the Persian Empire fell to Alexander. Today we call it Persepolis, by its Greek name. For all their craftsmanship and grandeur, these monumental forms had their limitations. The ancient ziggurat builders had already devised a brick arch across the temple stairway. This idea was taken up by a new Persian dynasty, the Sasanians. Long before the cathedral builders of Europe, they learned to roof the great central hall of their royal palaces with spectacular vaults. Doubtless they paid for their daring with some disastrous early collapses. By now, there remains just one battered Sasanian arch, a triumphant reminder of their pioneering achievements. Now, the Persian tradition had come to full flower in the service of Islam.
Allahu Akbar, Allah.
In the 7th century, the Islamic faith had burst from the Arabian Peninsula and swept rapidly across the Iranian plateau. It was a simple, direct message of fellowship, of every man in the service of one God. Local rulers still left their personal landmarks. Their tombs were a powerful expression of spiritual strength, dedicated in a stark, simple statement of their faith. The austere purity of this timeless memorial was never quite repeated. It was the earliest of many towers which still punctuate the broad Persian horizons. Strong sunlight plays on the brickwork, patterned and inscribed in a variety of local styles. Lofty minarets call the faithful to prayer. And the tower itself was patterned with the message of Islam. This one was entwined with a complete chapter of Arabic text from the Holy Quran. From the earliest Islamic period, the mosque was the center of community life. Only a few modest ruins have survived. But if we look closely, we see that already the structure was enriched with plaster, which could be delicately carved. The finest artistry was reserved for the mihrab, a central archway facing in the direction of Mecca. As a focus for worship and contemplation, the effect of these elegant, swirling patterns was almost hypnotic. Islam forbade the idolatrous carving of statues with which the European stonemason embellished his Gothic cathedrals. The mosque was graced with the words of the Prophet, spelled out in the flowing Arabic script. To create an even more dazzling impression, they added color. The glazed tiles were in brilliant contrast to the sober brick of the structure. Their total effect was a shimmering brightness to welcome the faithful to the mosque. With the infinitely painstaking art of mosaic. A single small mosaic panel to decorate a tiny corner of one mosque required hours and even days of patient skill. All this infinite care would have been wasted if it weren't for the sensitive eye of the Persian artist. The inspiration for his brilliant designs was usually drawn from nature, and especially from the brief Persian spring. The source of life on the Iranian plateau was melting snow from the high mountains. Beyond these mountains to the north roamed the nomadic tribes of Central Asia, and they turned covetous eyes on the prosperous settled communities. Over the centuries, time and again, fierce tribesmen erupted across the plateau in search of plunder. The Persian cities suffered terrible devastation. Yet each invader was eventually tamed, and their new ideas revitalized Persian culture. The construction of the dome was perfected by the Seljuks, descendants of a Turkoman tribe. In the 13th century, Genghis Khan wrecked the cities of Persia, and the Mongols became a byword for their savage destruction. Less widely appreciated is their role as lavish patrons of the Persian arts. The descendants of Genghis Khan were ambitious converts to the civilized life. From the wasteland of Mongol destruction rose new landmarks on a loftier scale than anything seen before. This tomb of a Mongol king is magnificent, even in ruin. It stands on the site of a new capital, soon abandoned. For all their grand plans, the Mongols never learned the essential civilized skills of administration. The plateau lay wide open to yet another invasion by the armies of Timur. He too wrought havoc, and then set Persians to work in dramatic gestures of reconstruction, determined to overshadow all his predecessors. It has often been observed that the gem-like colors of Persian tiles are in brilliant contrast to the sandy browns of the plateau. The skyline of the desert towns is also punctuated by elaborate wind towers, angled to catch every breath of air which may stir the summer heat. Beyond the cities stretch the vast, empty expanses of the Iranian plateau.